is the culmination of a process called the Gilmer Initiative for Community Housing in partnership with Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. It is the result of the GIC process. It is not, did not come of itself, come into discussion in today's agenda on its own. A couple of years ago, and I'll just play you an audio. This isn't an audio recording of Ms. Ferguson. It's an open meeting, so I'm not going to be split. It's not hearsay. This is a meeting that was open to the public.
Let me ask you this.
But I want to show.
This is specifically for comments on the Land Use Ordinance.
This is on the zoning changes. This is on zoning changes.
Okay.
General. Zoning changes that are, a lot of the zoning changes we're looking at today are the result of the decisions made from that process.
Okay, but that's your opinion.
Well,
You're stating an opinion, not.
I'm saying an opinion based upon a culmination and preponderance of the evidence that I have compiled for years.
I understand. I just need to clarify though, that.
It is my statement.
There you go.
I don't speak for anybody else. I don't have a team here. It's me.
Okay.
And I would say that in the past, when zoning changes, zoning particular was an issue for members of the GIC team, or Ms. Ferguson particularly, she and Kent sent out to the Home Builders Association and Planning and Zoning Board, trying to figure out how they were going to change zoning to fit their needs. Okay.
He's been wanting us to say that for years, even before I got involved with politics, with Commissioner and my status there. And so we've known it was coming, and then as soon as I was elected, we immediately went to the Builders Association and said, how can we build affordable housing? What do you need? I met with them over and over, same kind of meetings we've been doing over and over again. They said, the only thing we can do that the ordinance allows for, and I was like, well, we will change the ordinance so that you can do this. And so they did that, and we went through that whole process, and we did that to come up with duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes.
All right, so they came up, you can establish that before Mrs. Ferguson was even a commissioner. She was working with Mr. Sanford to preemptively change zoning. So that the day she held office, she went to the Home Builders Association board with him to get those stumbling blocks removed.
Let me tell you what I think I just heard though. I've been saying for years that yes, we need affordable housing. I just don't see where it's the government's job, but it should be private folks. And it sounded to me like she just went to the Builders Association and
No, she said
okay.
the day that she and Kent, I can play it again, before she was elected, while she was still at the Chamber of Commerce, she and Kent came up with the idea that we needed affordable housing. This is before 2020, okay? Housing was still affordable here. This is pre-COVID days. People were paying $800 for a two-bedroom house here still. There was no affordable housing need. They created the need, okay? Before she even became a post-2 commissioner in 2018, she tells you right here that she and Kent had meetings at the Chamber of Commerce, and that the day that she got elected, she and Kent immediately went to the Home Builders Association to have some stumbling blocks removed with regard to building housing in Gilmer County.
I might have done the same thing though. That to me is in line with, I think the builders should be the ones taking the initiative and not necessarily us.
And that would be fine, except for GIC became an issue, except for they formed a committee as an elected official, where she and Kent and John and Jim and Karen and other officials began to have those meetings discussing the need to remove the stumbling block of zoning to I'm explaining something, let me tell you something, let you in on something, Mr. Harris, maybe you don't know. In 2019, the Courier Street apartments were already under works. The owner of that property, Samuel Sanford, had already, and David knows this because he was party to it. Let me finish.
Charlie, let me interject here.
Okay.
First off, I'm not a public official, so if you slander me, you better be prepared that, you could be subject to a lawsuit. Second, I wasn't a party to that transaction. I was an attorney that closed the transaction.
Okay,
So
so,
I'm not
okay.
an attorney, but Miss,
then
Ms.
we're gonna
Records,
argue
please be
semantics
careful.
here. Semantically, you weren't a party, but realistically, you were the closing attorney and were aware.
I wasn't aware of anything. I'm just
You just
handling
sign
closing.
papers
let me
that
say
you don't
this.
look at.
You need to be careful because you're going to step into something, a landmine that you will
Well,
wish
as a
you hadn't.
whistleblower, I have protections.
Do what?
As a whistleblower, I enjoy certain protections.
I'm not a public official.
No, but you're representing public, and you're advising public officials, sir. You had a duty and an obligation at that time to advise the Board of Commissioners that you weren't aware that there was a direct conflict with your joint development authority, who you knew was part of GIG, who was gonna be seeking all these changes, and you did not tell them that because, well, I imagine you didn't tell John and Carlene because they already knew, but Charlie, you didn't tell Charlie.
Let me say that, on this meeting, we do have to put a time limit, and you've got about, 2.5 minutes left if you wanna go on to something
Yeah.
else. And it's not
So, what I'd like to drive home today is, and I don't, like I said, I have a war room at my house, okay? I'm not worried about being called a slanderer, because what I have to say, I have documentation to back up, okay? And while some of it may be my own opinion or my own impression or, how I might have seen it, I accept that there are some things that I say that are my impression. But when I say that Mr. Clark was the law firm, Clark & Clark was a law firm that closed on portions of the transactions on Courier Street, that is a fact. That is not subject to slander, that is fact, provable fact at the state clerk's office, okay? So, the apartments, the rezoning for R5 and GIG, the apartments predate GIG. They predate Carlene's tenure as post-2 commissioner. They created the problem to give you the solution. And that's what I think the citizens of this county need to be aware of. And I intend to make the proper state authority, and maybe federal, I'm not sure. Proper authorities made in the state, and the GBI may be aware of the illegal, what I perceive as illegal based upon ordinances, our own local ethics ordinance and conflicts ordinances, and a preponderance of all the evidence that they can decide for themselves what is here or not here. But I tell you that if this board moves forward with rezoning, approving the zoning changes and some of the rezonings before this board, do so at your own do so with caution.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to comment?
I didn't fall. Hi, my name is Matt Bond. I come before you as a resident here in Gilmer County, but also I'm a business owner here in Gilmer County. I own the roof. I'm generally a walking billboard, as you can see. And I have over 50 employees under our care. To us, they're more than employees, they're family. Most of our staff has been with us for going on 4+ years. We have the roof, the door, unique LJ. And I've called Gilmer County home full-time since 2020. Bought my first residence here in 2014. Invested in downtown and purchasing the building in 2018. It's the best thing I've ever done. We could not, and to clarify, my husband, Jason Boutwell, and I own these businesses together. We moved here after having a successful dental practice in Douglasville. I was in pharmaceuticals. I'm happy to say we brought down Amgen and reduced government spending by $5 billion. But all of that said, I'm here today about these ordinance changes because the comment was just made that this was done to fit a particular person's needs. It's about fitting the community's needs. And I think that's what we have to stay focused on. I've attended some of the GIG meetings. I was educated on options. I don't ever remember being told what we had to do. It was options that we had to think about. These ordinance changes, I think, are necessary. I know there's a lot of concern for some about properties that they own outside of maybe here in downtown. I own property over on the Cartacay. I don't want someone any closer than they are, but that's why I bought the land that I bought. For the affordable housing or density issues that I think we're talking about, I think we're really localized to a very specific area. Again, I was educated by the GIC committee sharing their findings that less than 1% of Gilmer County is actually able to access sewer and water. I think that pretty much tells us where we can go to meet the needs of the community. When I look at my staff and our 50+ employees, more and more, I'm happy to say, are able to find homes, but that's not their problem. Their problem is they're spending such a significant portion of the money they bring home, while many of these kids, and not all kids by any means, we have a very diverse group of people, but many of these people are looking to continue to save for their own health, for their well-being, for their future. And such a significant portion is going out the door that if we don't address this problem, and I know I took the time years ago to write all that was on the board, I fear that we could become just like Vail, Colorado, where they have to ship, they bus people in every day from far away just to have people to be able to work their restaurants. I love what we offer at the Roof, and I want everyone to be able to come, but if I don't have staff, I can't feed you, I can't meet the needs of the community as a whole, let alone the tourism that we have. So for what you're doing, I commend you, and I say thank you. I appreciate you recognizing that there are multiple voices and we all should be heard. I may disagree with Ms. Rebels completely. I respect her opinion to get up here and share it by all means, but don't let the loudest voices outweigh what the majority feel is necessary at this time. So thank you for your consideration in these adjustments and ordinances. I will try to be more present. This better be my last ankle replacement, but I really do appreciate the time, and I really say thank you for all that you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Doug Rink, Gilmer County resident. There's a lot I could say about the ordinance as it's drafted, but my more immediate concern is the process of how we are here today. Gilmer County residents have been given 2 weeks to review the draft, which was not released until, I believe, March 26th. One public hearing is scheduled on a Friday afternoon. Not the best time to draw a public crowd. With a county commission meeting to follow for a vote on this ordinance change, land use ordinance change. The first vote, there'll be a second one in May, but the first one is scheduled for immediately after, giving you no time to reflect on any comments you hear today. So, why are we here right now? Charlie said something the other day that made me think. Is this being done to benefit one particular entity? And I have to come back and say, possibly so. Because a developer, Georgia Communities, the chosen official partner of the Gilmer Initiative for Community Housing, filed for a rezoning request weeks before the public knew what was coming. It was accepted by Mr. Smith in Planning and Zoning. The Times Courier noted this plan is coming in its March 12th edition. That's like 2 weeks before the rest of us knew what was happening. Why is that? I go back and look at history. Let's go back 2 years, May 2023. Mr. Ken Stanford, as chairman of the GIG and chairman of the Gilmer Joint Development Authority, addressed Delaware City Council on plans by a developer, Georgia Communities, to build apartments on Courier Street. He received a warm welcome. He said his appearance in May was very important because Georgia communities needed appropriate documents to submit with their applications to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. Let's look at, last year, this time, April, May. 85 UConn was a hot topic. Of course, it was an evening public hearing for rezoning, and it drew hundreds of people. And the GIC proposal, partnership with Georgia communities, went down in flames. It was an embarrassing thing. But here we are, April, May again. Why always April, May? Because Georgia communities, it appears, is facing deadlines with the Department of Community Affairs. It needs certain documentation in place to move forward with a low-income housing tax credit application. I believe that is why we are seeing a rushed push to get this through right now on a Friday afternoon. This is a major change for Gilmer County. I would have loved to have been privy to some of the GIC meetings where things like this were discussed, but the public was not invited, nor were GIC meetings advertised.
This is not a GIC initiative that we're working on here.
But it stems from the GIC initiative participants, particularly Ms. Ferguson took credit for moving this agenda forward.
In your opinion,
In my opinion, she did admit it in a public work session 2 days ago. I think we need some discovery before this moves forward. I would like to know if GIC, or what role Georgia Communities has played in the timetable, and if Gilmer County officials such as Mr. Smith, Ms. Ferguson, or any of the other members of the board, the planning staff, are aware of the need for this change to take place so that Georgia Communities' application before the DCA can move to fruition.
I don't recall ever being told that there was anything of that nature that was pushing this, or any such deadlines. But let me ask you though, you're in attendance at almost every meeting. Were you not privy to the discussions that we had on this in our March meeting?
We did not get details, we did not get a draft of the ordinance until it was publicly advertised in the Times Courier.
No, we were working out what those details were gonna be. What happens is, we discuss what changes are gonna take place, and then we ask David then to formalize that. You're talking about the formalized part of it and saying you only got a couple of weeks, but what was formalized was what was discussed in the March meeting. That and some of the discussions from the work sessions. But it's not, yeah, maybe the formal document was a couple of weeks, but you know, there's been a couple of months worth of discussion going on about this, and those discussions are what generated that document. So I don't think it's fair to say you've had 2 weeks to think about it.
These discussions cite specifically a zoning density of 10 units per acre.
We discussed that, yes, and we discussed that and other possibilities, but that's what was settled on.
Well, that was what was settled on. If we really can't respond until you settle on something. You've given us 2 weeks.
We can't respond to anything until the proposal is put forth, and, you know, we spend a couple of months trying to come up with what that proposal is going to be. And the document that you're discussing is what the end result of those couple of months worth of discussion. And you were there for those discussions, so it shouldn't have been a surprise to you.
I may have missed a meeting because I am not aware of some of those discussions, and again, I have not been at every meeting. And it's difficult when you have so many meetings and special meetings and work sessions, and 8 a.m. or 4 p.m. or.
It is, but recently all the meetings have been recorded, and
it is.
I don't know for a fact, but I think you may be able to find them on YouTube.
I'm pretty good at finding. I wish my hearing was better and we had the right mics. If we had official televised or streamed commission meetings and work sessions, it would be very advantageous to the
Well, we may be able to improve on that some at the new location, but for now, this is what we've got.
Now, have any of our commissioners declared a conflict of interest in moving this issue forward because of their involvement with GIC?
Well, that's something that's on the agenda for tonight. They can either declare that they do or do not have a conflict.
Again, I would, because of the peculiarity of the timetable, and that we are rushing this through,
Doug, this timetable is the exact same timetable we use for every ordinance change.
just 2 weeks, moving commission meetings.
Let me ask you this, you were at the work session a
Yes,
couple
sir.
minutes ago, right? You remember the discussion on, light, proliferation?
Yes, I did.
Okay. We're gonna have another discussion on that. And we're gonna ask David to put something together for us, and then we'll have a discussion on that. And we'll ask for a final version, and you'll probably get about 2 weeks to look at that. But you should have been in the process all the way down the line, and there should be nothing in that final version that's a surprise to you. You say that this is a special timetable. It takes 3 months to make an ordinance change. No matter what ordinance change you're looking to make, the process is the same for any of them. We're not doing any kind of a special timetable on this that we wouldn't do on the light ordinance, for instance, if there turns out to be one. It'll take 3 months for that to happen, and I'm guessing that, once we get to the public comment part of it and get something final, we'll probably have about 2 weeks to look at that. But again, there shouldn't be any surprises in it for you.
Are you aware of any past precedent where a rezoning application was accepted and moved forward based on the presumption the land use ordinance would be changed just prior to the final vote approving that rezoning request?
No, I'm not familiar with another one.
It seems a highly unusual manner, because our planning and zoning commission next week is being asked to recommend approval based on an ordinance that at the time it acts next week does not exist or limits density to 4 units per acre.
David, from a legal perspective, is there a problem with that?
The board can set policies and adopt ordinances as it sees fits.
I'm talking about specifically somebody making a request for, a zoning change when that is not permitted yet.
No, I mean, y'all get questioned or get requests for zoning changes all the time, and that's how a good number of these versions have come into place over the years, is that there's been a request or something of that similar nature to make a change. It's a fluid document. It's not a static document. It doesn't stay in place, and that's the changes, and that's what's under consideration today. The rezoning isn't under consideration at all. It's still to be presented to the planning commission, and if there's an objection to that, at that time, that area would be a public hearing for the citizens to participate in. But for today and for tonight, is only the rezoning, the ordinance, the change in the land use district.
I think the supposition here, though, is that if that zoning wasn't available, that we should not have taken a request for the rezoning.
That's correct.
I see your point, but I don't see that anybody did anything wrong on this. No promises were made, no commitments were made. I know for myself, and I believe you're talking about the same property that we had, they requested a de-annexation. People don't understand sometimes that we don't have the authority to say, no, we can't do it. State law requires only about 3 or 4 different specifics that we could cite as a reason for turning down a request for de-annexation. None of those apply. I made a comment at that point, and maybe you were there to hear it, that, yeah, I was fine with the de-annexation because I didn't have any choice but to be fine, but that they should not assume that this meant that they were automatically gonna get the zoning. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
So,
And I think you made a very valid point, but I would like to know, for the sake of disclosure, what brought us here today and what will bring us here next Thursday is who in Gilmer County told Georgia communities that our zoning density would be changing and that they would be able to bring forward a architectural rendering and an application for 10 units per acre. Again, well before the draft was released to the public.
I don't believe there's anybody that could tell them that their zoning was gonna be changing. They could have been told that there will be a proposal to change our zoning, but, you know, nobody can guarantee that a zoning change is going to take, no one person can guarantee that a zoning, change is going to take place.
Well, again, the whole process has been muddied by GIC. Because GIC embarked on an endeavor of non-advertised meetings, no public involvement except for those by invitation. 2 years ago at a special called meeting, I red flagged you on this. GIC could have fixed this from the start by simply having advertised meetings and public participation. It was GIC that refused. You have 2 GIC members sitting on this board. They hold a majority.
But you're still asking this board to address situations from GIG, even though they're, I'm not sure they're still GIG members, but even if they were, there's GIG and there's the Board of Commissioners. GIG can't change ordinances or do any of our stuff. We can't do anything for them. If you've got a complaint about GIG, you really need to go to GIG.
But you're acting on what has been the GIC agenda tonight and planning and.
We're not acting on it because it's the GIG agenda.
You know, letter to the editor from 2 years ago in Times Courier. Appearances of conflicts of interest are created when we have elected and administrative officials sitting on a GIG committee helping formulate policies or projects that these elected and administrative officials will later be expected to pass judgment on.
Can I ask you who the author of that letter
That
is?
author was standing right before you speaking tonight. And it's happening just like I saw would be happening. And again, I think it's ill-conceived. I think we deserve to know how much of this is GIC, how much was it GIC that gave Georgia communities a heads up to move ahead? Are we here tonight on a rush timetable where a county commission meeting has been moved to accommodate the time schedule so that Georgia communities presumably will have the official approvals needed to make its application to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs next month?
Doug, no meeting has been moved in order to meet any
On
of
Friday
their.
night, Charlie.
The meeting tonight was moved because one of the folks here had a conflict, it had nothing to do with that. We move meetings all the time. If you look at our schedule, you're gonna find that, there are other meetings that are moved because they conflict with, for instance, ACCG scheduled meetings and other things. We try to meet every second Thursday, but, other organizations and other things happen that one or more officers maybe can't make a meeting.
I
And
understand that.
so typically what we'll do is, we'll go ahead and change the date of the meeting.
Is this a position of this board that a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock is the most advantageous time for a public hearing to draw maximum public input?
It is position of this board that Friday night at 4 p.m. was the earliest and the best that all of the people on this board could get together at the same time.
And again, my question is, why are we pushing for the earliest and not the best? And with that, I thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Diane Schieser, Stromberger, sorry. So with a comment that we had that someone was available for a GIC meeting, just so happens that that same person is a donor to both John Marshall and Carlene Ferguson, wondering why they had access to, a GIC meeting when the public was not. Showing maybe a pay-to-play scheme, I don't know, it's
I have to
awfully
tell you, I'm not
secure,
following
it's
you.
awfully curious that they're able to, be at a meeting when the public is not, to be able to see what's going on. And really and truly, it's not, a lot of us aren't upset with maybe duplexes or triplexes coming into the area. It's the fact that it's been obscure from public knowledge, that we are upset that we have not had any say in the process. We have not known about these meetings, we haven't been able to attend,
I
and,
assume you're talking about the GIG meetings now because you've known about ours.
but, yes, about the GIG. And there's 2 members here in your commission that are part of the GIG process.
I understand, but this is not a GIG meeting.
I understand that, but
If
they
you have a
have,
problem with GIG, you need to go to GIG.
we can't. We don't know where the meetings are, we don't know when the meetings are, we have no clue. And they have deciding factors of what happens in that meeting is also what happens on this board. Because you have 2 members that are highly involved in the GIG process. And that's the issue that we have, that we don't know what's going on. And, maybe the public would be more open to it if it wasn't behind closed doors. And that's all we're saying. We're not opposed to growth, but we want the community to be involved. And having the information that's being shared in those meetings closed and the public not knowing, how can we have a room full of people coming in to tell you what we feel if we don't know what's happening?
My frustration there is that I firmly believe that the Board of Commissioners has been totally and completely open. Our meetings are advertised, everybody's welcome, anybody that wants to speak gets to speak. For us to be criticized because you don't know what's going on from another organization, it's frustrating because that's not something I know how to fix. And the implication, I believe,
Well, all communication between,
is that we're not being forthcoming on the board, and I do resent that, because we are.
well, then all communication between all parties involved in GIC need to be released to the public. If
I
you
believe
want-
it's get subject to, the information request.
I'm not the attorney for GIG, but I don't believe that it's been set up as though it's a public agency by the state or anything of that nature. DCA would be the appropriate entity to ask, as a state agency, and that is the appropriate agency.
The list of who's in GIG.
Can I clarify something that Diane,
Go
to
ahead.
make, everyone aware that Mr. Bond, the meetings that he's talking about were the 2 public meetings that we had, that were open to the public, one in 22 and one in 23, so.
If there were meetings that weren't open to the public, the proper, format for that would be to go to DCA and not necessarily to the Board of Commissioners.
How was that advertised?
The public meeting?
How was the public meeting of GIC advertised so we would know it existed?
I'm pretty sure, I know you were there, I know you spoke.
Nope.
April 23rd at, the elementary school.
That was a Home Builders Association meeting.
That one was April 19th and 22nd, 22.
Yeah, that was the Home Builders Association.
Correct, and then there was a
That
public
wasn't
comment.
GIC.
a
Are you
town
saying
hall
it was
meeting.
GIC? Because I liked that's
Okay,
GIC.
wait, whoa.
I'll
We're
let,
not gonna do this back and forth. You're welcome to come back.
Well, it's
to the
either
podium.
GIC or it's not GIC.
She's
Because
trying
if
to
it's GIC,
explain,
she's
it.
got
You
bigger
better finish.
problems.
Okay, but we're not gonna start going all over the room.
All right.
Happy
My
days.
apologies.
So here Ms. Ferguson is saying that GIC is involved and, Georgia Home Builders Association is involved, in which, I have a photo right here of John Marshall accepting a check from the Home Builders Association. I have Miss Ferguson on a flyer here with the Home Builders Association as well. I'm trying to find the listing of who GIC is comprised of, and they're all elected officials. Everybody that's on the GIC committee is an elected official or an appointed official by this board, and they are subject to open records requests. I am requesting that all the communication between members of GIC be released for the public to see.
We don't have the authority to do that, we're not GIG.
And they're not all elected officials. And both those public comment meetings were town hall meetings that GIC did initiate. And that was April 23rd at the elementary school, and then after our public survey that we did, which is also at the elementary school on December 4th, 23.
So y'all only had
meetings that Matt Bond is
y'all
referring
had
to.
2 meetings? Y'all only had 2 meetings?
No, ma'am, we've had more than 2 meetings.
Then why hasn't the public been
Because-
involved?
We ran our GIC meetings the exact same way every other GIC community in the state runs our meetings. We did not have, we are not appointed, we are not all elected officials
Y'all are
or
appointed.
stakeholders.
Okay, folks.
We can go around and round.
We
but
can, but we wanna talk about the subject at hand, and GIG is not that. Again, if you have a problem with GIG, Department of Community Affairs is where you need to go.
I'd like to make a couple of clarifications. The December 2024 meeting, Ms. Ferguson spoke that was supposed to have been a presentation by the Georgia Conservancy on the Gilmer housing study, which turns out was not complete. Throughout that 1.5 survey, or year-long survey, public input was muted to multiple choice questionnaires. And at the meeting Ms. Ferguson referred to, there was a public comment period. It was held to 7 minutes. That was not appropriate.
Sometimes, I was at that meeting, I know, and the auditorium was completely full. If you don't limit it, and we limit our conversations here to 7 minutes. And, well, depending on how many, we set it depending on how many people are here. The idea is, if you've got 300 people there, you can't let everybody talk for 20 or 30 minutes, or very few people get to talk.
We had a large crowd there, and the entire population there, as far as public input verbally, was held to 7 minutes. The other matter of whether GIC is subject to open meetings and open records law. On one hand, GIC argues that it is a private entity.
What part of we're not gonna keep on about GIG is confusing?
GIC does answer open records requests, and it charges for fulfillment. So
Then-
on one hand, it admits it's a public agency, on another, it does not.
Okay, and I can't say that you're wrong on that, but if they are subject to it, make it to them, not to us.
It's to them and the Attorney General, thank
Yeah,
you.
that'll work. Anybody else? We got about 20 more minutes. Okay, well, we'll hold on for another 5 or 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, or whatever, in case somebody decides that they want to come in. And if there's still no other comments, we'll close it out. But we will begin our regular meeting then, at 5 o'clock.
We've spoken on the first time.
since we have a couple minutes, why not? See if we end it on a positive note. I was so focused on my team. Hey, Matt Bond again. Hi. I didn't know I was so privileged to public information. But I was thinking earlier about my staff, my team, and what it means to them, and all of those that can't be there because we were busy today, that asked for me to say a few words. Totally left out another large group of people that I think need to be remembered and thought about during this consideration. Our firefighters, our policemen, our government workers, our teachers, all of those that,
No,
sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm always available. If you wanna catch me afterwards, feel free. But my thing is that, again, in attending the open forum meetings and listening to the information, there's such a large portion in this community that make less than $60,000 in an entire household, where such an enormous amount of that is utilized for their rent, mortgage, bills, etc. I think what you guys are doing takes bravery, and I really want to say thank you. And I speak on behalf of a lot of my staff. They're family to us. I'm watching these kids get married. These kids have kids now, which just shocks me, and do so much more. And a lot of them want to stay here in Gilmer County. And I want them to be able to as well. So thank you for what you're doing. It's truly appreciated. Might be a thankless job, but there you are loved. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hey there, good afternoon. My name is John Jones. I'm a Gilmer County resident. Between my wife and I, we're local builders. I'm a local developer, and collectively, we, like lots of other people in Gilmer County, mostly, we're members of the Builders Association. I feel like a lot of times the comments in here are directed as if the concerned citizens of Gilmer County are the customers of Gilmer County Board of Commissioners. However, we're the users of the process. We're the people that file the zoning applications. We're the people that file the variance applications. We're the people that have to use the processes that are in place. The jurisdictions vary. We're in that unique situation where we live in a county that has 2 cities plus a county. So depending on where you are and what you're doing, you have a process. They're not necessarily congruent in any way. The zoning is not the same everywhere. Obviously, there's lots of differences. It's, but it's part of our job when we do what we do to honor the process of whatever jurisdiction it is that we're working in. But I don't feel like it's the job of this body of commissioners or even the administrative staff of the county to be the ones that are out, working with the builders, working with the Builders Association, whatever. A lot of people would see that as conflict of interest. I would actually see that as a breath of fresh air, but I don't put that onus on the county. What I do appreciate is somebody being proactive. I was not even familiar with GIC until I came to the meeting in March. Now that I understand a little bit about, what's happening there, we collectively would welcome proactivity. I'm excited to see that we're looking at zoning changes. I think they're long overdue. and looking forward and be realistic to the growth that this county is facing. I feel like, circumstantially in the past, mostly driven by finances, we've had to be a very reactive county. And things came, opportunities came. I'll just use Walmart as an example. In as much as I think it was great that it came, we weren't ready for it to come, as infrastructure wise. Now I see an opportunity. Again, we have a very small public sewer footprint. There's only so many places that certain things can go in this county. I mean, you could just very easily look at a map and see what the options are. Those options are running out. And unless there's a massive expansion of Gilmer County sewer, you know, that's not gonna change anytime soon. So I just wanna say that, you know, as a user, as a, someone who has to work through the processes and getting permits and requesting zoning changes and variances and so forth, you do what you gotta do. It may be a little bit of a frustrating process, but we, you know, we're more than willing to do whatever it is we need to do. But I am excited about the possibility that our county is taking a forward-looking view at what's coming. Because it is coming. It's not a matter of if it comes. It's not really even a matter of when it comes. It's here. That we at least can have the processes in place, the processes that we all are going to have to use that are very well defined, zoning that's very well defined, because it just makes the process that much harder. It makes it harder for the county, it makes it harder for those of us that are in that business. So I want to say I appreciate the opportunity to stand up here and speak, and I appreciate the opportunity to be what I would consider to be a consumer of the services, this planning and zoning subset of services that our county offers. And I appreciate a very hardworking staff that this county has, and I look forward to maybe a more streamlined future in working with Gilmer County. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's me again. If someone's gonna get up here and be a simple builder, he should probably disclose who he really is. When you work for the builder of Walmart, you aren't just a simple businessman who just
Address,
wants to
if
have
I may
some,
say this.
well, I will. I'll address it to you. So when you're gonna take the only testimony you get in favor is from the right-hand wingman of the man who built Walmart, you know, I'm just saying, take that into consideration.
Be respectful, please.
I am, well, it works out. Because when I see what's happening in my community around me, and I see that it's all smoke and mirrors, they know who John Jones is. I know who John Jones
Okay.
is. Okay? I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to him. I'm talking to
Well,
you.
okay, don't talk about him.
I just said I knew who he was. Mr. Jones is the one who told me about the hospital before that. You all knew about the hospital. Mr. Jones is the one who told me that we're probably gonna get a big box store up there too. I'm talking to you.
This is the last
Talking to you.
request that I'm gonna make to leave Mr. Jones out of this.
Just be cautious about whose voice you listen to, because even the most simple people who seem like they're just regular old citizens have money to be made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harvey, if you've got just a couple minutes,
refreshing.
Huh?
That would be
No,
refreshing.
well, I am pleased, Mr. Travis, thank you. Took me more than 30 minutes to get here tonight from Solon Mountain. Why? Backup traffic on 515. We're talking about adding, according to Mr. Smith, apartments, perhaps clusters of apartments in the urban center area that aligns 515 in East LJ and now increasingly Gilmer County as you go into de-annexation. Put us in the same boat, or perhaps worse than we were 4 years ago when this board authorized and blessed the efforts of KIC as a planning entity. Our roads are more crowded. They're arguably in worse repair, except for some major initiatives in particular areas. Our traffic is worse. Our EMS and fire struggle to keep up. I appreciate the board's efforts to get us a new aerial truck and to add much needed ambulances. But if we're adding untold numbers of additional residents clustered together in the urban core, and Gilmer County as an unincorporated entity is de-annexing properties out of the city, this is going to create an unfair burden on our emergency response. Now, fire and EMS maybe not so much, but law enforcement. Are we going to hire additional deputies to patrol our new urban apartment districts? Or are we going to pull deputies away from our rural neighborhoods and outlying territories to keep the peace in our new apartment communities?
I think the obvious answer to that is that as our population grows, we will have to hire new deputies. And that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. The more your population grows, the more deputies you're gonna have to have. That's one of the reasons why we have started looking into, impact fees. Because, you know, we believe that if a developer wants to bring in several hundred lots, it's gonna cost us an infrastructure and additional deputies and so forth, that, you know, they should help out with that. So that's one of the reasons we've gone down that path. But let me say that I think it's obvious that as your population grows, so will the road department, the deputies, the firemen, everything else.
As we move towards inviting higher density, apparently, presumptively, and having it concentrated on or near the 515 corridor, before this ordinance and the possibility to move forward, and looking at the joint comprehensive plan, much of this concentration is gonna be right here. We have one north-south corridor basically in this county. Even on a Friday afternoon, perhaps most on a Friday afternoon with the tourist traffic heading further north, we are slammed. Has this ordinance and the idea of raising density and inviting high-density apartments into an already overtaxed community in a lot of ways, has the DOT been consulted? How would the DOT plan to handle the additional traffic flow? Are we looking at 1, 2, 3 additional traffic lights on 515? What will this do for traffic flow? Took me a half an hour today. I imagine with another 2 traffic lights, it would take me 45 minutes. A year ago, I could get here in 12, and I drive very conservatively. Are we looking at a 6-lane 515? If we're looking at a 6-lane 515 because of the apartment dwellers and the additional growth in the approximately 11,000 still vacant subdivision lots we already have, would the additional lanes be added on the median area, or would they be on the outlying area of the right-of-way? So on the right-of-way, they're gonna be right in the backyard of apartments that are coming apparently.
What solution do you think would be better?
I would like to know what the DOT outlook is on how much more traffic that particular stretch of 515 can handle before we have to take remedial action, or before the state has to take remedial action.
That's not a solution, it's not a plan.
It is a plan, because it should be in part of the
The
planning
DOT,
process.
the DOT will certainly be consulted for specific situations, not necessarily just to make an ordinance change. If somebody comes in and wants 10,000 apartment units, you know, certainly the DOT would be consulted for that specific, individual request. But my question to you is, you're talking about growth, you're talking about density. What's your solution?
My solution is orderly planned growth. And the new policy of this commission seems to be increase density and then allow development on a piecemeal de-annexation type model that cannot be planned for and does not fit with any of the planning processes we went through in the past year.
You did hear what I was saying about, we only have 3 or 4 specific reasons that we can deny the annexation request, right?
But you plan on de-annexing and then rezoning apparently for apartments.
Well-
They go hand in hand. You
But-
can't pretend it's each,
Okay, but if we can't turn down the de-annexation, and we know the rezoning is coming, and that hasn't been, we don't have an up or down on that yet. What I'm saying is, you're not coming up with a solution. You just said, we need to look at this, we need to look at that. And you've mentioned de-annexation 3 or 4 times now. We can't refuse the de-annexation except for one of those, I think it's 3 specific reasons. So what is, so let's take this example, where we did de-annex that property. Item 1, are you saying that we should not have de-annexed the property? And if so, how do we justify we're not doing it with the state?
well, again, it's a complex situation.
It is. but
Mr.
you're not
West was
offering
willing to keep
solutions,
his
you're
property
just-
commercial and pay the property taxes to Gilmer County. Got no problem with that. Here's the problem, you're asking me to find a solution. 4 years ago, we all discussed these very same problems: traffic, public safety, zoning, density.
What was your proposed solution 4 years ago?
4 years ago, we were told GIC was gonna be the
Okay.
solution. We were
GIC
told
is done.
this.
Please
It was
leave.
gonna be 4 years of study.
Please leave.
We've not gotten it. I'm waiting for it.
No. You're done
I'm
for
waiting
public.
for it.
Our time is up. So, I'm gonna,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's 5:00. We're ready to begin our regular meeting. Commissioner Ferguson, would you do our invocation, please?
Absolutely. Lord, we come before you on this evening. We pray for wisdom for all of our leaders here today. We pray for our community, that you would guide our steps and guide our directions, and help us to make the best decisions for this community. We thank you for our first responders. We pray you keep them safe, for our national leadership, and for this world, Lord, that you would be with all of those making important decisions. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I believe, Charlie, that we can remove unfinished business number 1 and move it to the next.
Okay.
I don't know about light pollution also, we moving that one.
No, I'd like to leave that.
Okay.
We won't spend a lot of time on it.
Okay.
Also, I think that we can move, other, new items. I don't know,
No.
Motion that the agenda be approved with those changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have minutes to approve from the March 3rd executive session, March 3rd special call, March 18th work session, March 18th executive session, March 19th regular meeting, March 19th executive session, March 24th special call, and March 24th executive session. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes?
I have none.
In motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, due to a bunch of different, things that are going on right now, we don't have a financial statement tonight, but we will try to make up for that, a little later on. Under unfinished business, discussion and possible action on light pollution. The only thing that I want to say on that tonight is, I would like for us to authorize David to go ahead and come up with some thing that we can look at. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Brings us to discussion on conflicts of interest. What I'm going to do is simply say that I have no conflict of interest, and I will open it to the post commissioners to declare whether they feel they do or not.
I will say the same thing. I do have no conflicts of interest. I appreciate this community and the citizens of this community electing me. I ran on trying to work to find some answers to the trouble that we have with affordable housing or lack of affordable housing. And along with keeping the culture of this community and many other things, but primarily I was elected for those reasons. And that's a difficult job, obviously. And when I first came into office in January, I said to David, I want to clarify these two issues of this ordinance, and that was in January. And he said, are you sure? Because you're going to have pushback. And I said, yes, I'm sure. I know I will have pushback, but this is important to this community because it breaks my heart to find out. My husband's a teacher at the high school, and he shared with me that there are 50 children in our school system that are homeless. 50. That's not right. It doesn't sit well with me at all. Those kids are living on sofas or floors with family members in basements, wherever. And it's as I told my children when we moved here years ago, it is not a crime to be poor or to make less money. It is not fair to treat someone that makes less money with disrespect and treat them as if they're a criminal and might do drugs or steal. This community is made up of some wonderful, God-fearing people, and that's why I moved here. And when I decided to run for election again, I gave my word to the people that voted for me that I was gonna look after them in all of these areas. And that's why I came to David and asked for this is one step to changing, to make things a little easier for some of our citizens to have a place to live. And I appreciate David's work and the Board of Commissioners' work on this since January, February, really, when we started doing this. So I have no conflict of interest. I'm proud of the work I've done, and I appreciate this board and the respect that I receive from this board. And I will continue to serve the Gilmer County citizens.
I'm simply going to say I have no conflicts of interest.
Thank you. Brings us to rezonings. We've all discussed these. I make a motion that the three that we have before us be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Citizens wishing to speak. Anybody that wants to comment on any topic? Except you.
Lee Johnson, citizen of Gilmer County. I just want to a couple of real quick things. I wanna thank the road department. Again, you know, I'm very appreciative of the bridges we have built out there, especially after this week. They held up, they didn't float away, move. So we're very blessed that that happened. I also wanna thank the road, they keep our Little Rock Creek Road graded. This last time was the best we've ever had, now it's not in good shape. Obviously, if anybody's been out there. And I wanna thank the road department for also the huge amount of shrub clearance that they've done this spring. And my final request, after those very important compliments to the road department and the commissioners, is that I would hope somewhere down the road and pray that we get paving for Little Rock Creek Road. And if you've been out there this week, you know why. It's been a brutal week for our road. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, sir.
Wayne Johnson. I got a question for, probably for Jim. Do y'all have any idea yet how many short-term rental cabins are in the county?
Jim, do you have a figure there?
The last count that I had from, Sandy, for the benefit of, Wayne and everyone else, GovOS identified 1,047. We have, Sandy and, her staff and us, have gone back and identified, the last count, Wayne, was Monday, I think, and it was 1,600 plus. So we are still adding short-term rentals to that inventory.
And those are all confirmed?
Those are confirmed, yes. And that 1,600, means that they have been identified, they have gone onto the system, and they have registered as short-term rentals.
Thank you.
I've been in this county and the neighboring county 76 years. And it's ungodly at the changes that I've seen in this county and the neighboring counties. And a lot of the changes are not good. Some of these people that come here, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them that come here, they leave where they're coming from to get away from all the garbage that they have to put up with. But when they come here, they bring their garbage with them. And then they expect us to change and put up with what they've had to put up with for the rest of our lives. Some of that is not good. I'm just making that as a statement. That's all I'm saying out there. The second Rock Creek Bridge, I don't know if you know this or not, when it stopped up during that hard rain, water went over the bridge, over the road, the whole bottom was a lake in there. Okay, the lower side of that bridge, the asphalt's undercut at least 2 feet. If a big truck goes on that asphalt, on that lower side of that bridge, he's gonna cave in. A loaded truck. So I don't know if you know that or not.
I did not, but I'll be sure to pass it on to them.
Well, that's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne.
As was mentioned earlier, the joint comprehensive plan is what we go by. Mr. Johnson, not the second who just spoke, Mr. Johnson, his wife Laura was the chairwoman. And in that discussion, in the process there, it became very clear the purpose of, and I want to clarify, joint comprehensive plan's purpose is multifaceted, but it's for us to be a qualified limited government. And that process is required for us to receive state and federal funding for projects and be involved in to qualify for that funding.
Among other things.
Amongst, yes, yeah, it's more than that, but that's generally why we embarked on that process years ago. They decided they needed money, buildings were boarded up, needed to revitalize Gilmer County. And so with that came zoning, the joint comprehensive plan, and money's coming in, and a lot of infrastructure, and a lot of changes came as a result of that, good and bad. And as was mentioned earlier, it's not the good stuff that we're worried about. It's we want to stop the bad. And those of us who have come from other places who don't want to change Gilmer County fell in love with it for all of its flaws and scars, its history and its people. I didn't come here to change anybody's experience. I didn't come here to build a subdivision. I didn't come here to tell anybody how to live their lives, how to shoot guns on their property or burn a fire. Not my business. I'm here because that's the people here. I identified with their way of being. I'm a free person. I was born that way and I intend to die that way. And I think for that reason, that part of Gilmer County is what's appealing to me. The part that's not appealing to me, the challenges for the system in place where business is done in the old school way, when you have a changed, revitalized community where the old way of doing things cannot continue. We cannot continue to have engage in discussions in back rooms and omit the public, because while we may come here not to change anything, we can spot a problem when we see it. And it took me a long time before I was willing to admit the same problems exist here, that existed where I came from. I didn't bring them here. I'm just drawing attention to it. I would like for you all to obey, go by the intent of the Joint Comprehensive Plan. Mr. Paris, you have on multiple occasions stated that the Joint Comprehensive Plan should be adhered to. It's not a guardrail. It's not bumpers. It's not to be there just to receive funding and money. It's there to protect the citizens of Gilmer County, to preserve a quality of life, a heritage, and a culture that's been here in Gilmer County for generations. And you're on the verge of losing it. And I'm sad for the people who've been here and are watching it happen. I ask you to adhere to the existing, continue with the existing zoning density, and adhere to intent and purpose of what the work that the Joint Comprehensive Plan Committee put in to make sure that the future zoning in Gilmer County will be protected and development will not continue in the path that it's on.
Thank you. Anybody else?
David Baldwin, Gilmer County resident. This is the first meeting I've ever been to. I'm not familiar with a lot of what's going on, but I was a real estate appraiser for a long time. And there are alternatives to just plain old apartment buildings. I'm just guessing that nobody wants a whole bunch of renters in one place. I don't know, but there are things, fee simple townhomes and condominiums that have covenants, and they can restrict the amount of rentals. Typically, they're 25%. So if you have renters that are only 25% of a collection of buildings, the other 75% are probably gonna keep them in line. And that might, I'm just making a suggestion that it's something that might be worth looking into.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? decision by the Gilmer County Board of Commissioners considering the recommendation by the Gilmer County Planning Commission regarding the application for a 2025 river outfitters license for Carter River Experience. As I understand it, it met all of the requirements, so I would make a motion that be approved.
Second. Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adoption of first reader of amendments to Land Use Ordinance. Any discussion on that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adoption of first reader of amendments to purchases by the Board of Commissioners, disposal of surplus property.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible action on the appointment of Stephen Duncan as magistrate judge. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible action on ambulance bids. Is there any discussion on that?
No.
No.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible action on budget amendments. I have two that I would like to make a motion on. One would be the rearrangement of some capital items under the airport budget so that we can, rather than, rehabilitating the Jet A tanks, we can get the, used pickup truck. Money will not change, the amount of money will not change, it's just, changing the direction it's being spent. And I'll make that, the other thing too is, additional $29,000 for the EMA budget, for salaries.
Any funding source on that?
That's gonna be a general fund.
The fund balance? Yes. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else on that one?
No.
Discussion, possible action on memorandum of understanding between Georgia Emergency Management, Homeland Security, and Gilmer County EMA. I am going to make one suggestion on that. That is something that we have to have for our EMA director to have access to, online information from GMA. I'd like to change the wording on it just a little bit to say that we approve, the EMA director for that, whoever that might be.
Say that.
Okay, rather than having a specific person's name there.
Oh, yes,
I'd
the,
like to
the
just
title,
say that.
okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's fine.
So,
Did you make a motion?
I made a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion and possible action on changing the dates of the July 2025 work session. I think we, had talked about the 15th and 16th, was that correct? 16th and 17th, okay.
Right.
And it was the
We're gonna do
morning,
the afternoon, the work session will be in the afternoon on the 16th. The regular meeting will be in the morning on the 17th.
okay. I think everybody's available at that time. I would make a motion that, that change be made.
We set a time on that afternoon. I don't know if it has to be set with this, but
I don't know if it has to be in the.
Can we say 2 o'clock?
it works.
That's
Two.
what works.
2 o'clock and then 9 o'clock for the regular meeting on the 17th.
Correct.
Okay. I'll incorporate that into my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible action on employee benefits. We had discussion on the soft benefits and hard benefits there. And this is an effort to, try to increase satisfaction, employee satisfaction, for the people who work for the county. We're facing a situation where the surrounding counties are paying more than we're paying for various departments and jobs. We don't feel that we have the resources to increase what we're paying now, so we're trying to look at things that don't cost us anything extra that might, improve employee satisfaction. One of those things was, giving people their birthday off every year. It's not that it doesn't cost us any money, it doesn't cost us any extra money that we have on our budget. So there's a few items like that. The, hard items, are increased retirement benefits, increased pay. We wanna look at those things, but, we just can't do it right this very minute. So what I'm gonna make a motion that the soft benefits, as mentioned in this proposal, we approved.
With the exception of the,
Medical opt-out.
With exception of medical opt-out, which we'll look at later.
that's your motion,
Yes.
second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, I do need a very short executive session for personnel, maybe 10 minutes, no action anticipated.
So moved.
I'll second it, all in favor?
Sorry.
Aye. Okay, thank you, folks, we do appreciate it.